Hey everybody, Jace here. Just want to remind you that on every one of these 12 days of the Comic Source videos, you can win 1 month free of Global Comics. And on Christmas Day, we'll be giving away a free year of Global Comics. All you have to do to enter is just go over to the YouTube channel and leave a comment on any particular episode that you've checked out. If you listen to it audio only, again, just head over to YouTube, do a search for the Comic Source. Leave a comment, and everybody who enters a comment for a particular video, I will select at random a person for that video to win the code to get a month of free Global Comics, which is the premier destination for digital comics. Got the best user interface I've ever seen for digital comics. You can read comics on your phone. Over 375,000 comics so far in the library. It's growing daily, so it doesn't cost you a thing to check it out. Again, just leave a comment on the YouTube video for any of the 12 days of the Comic Source YouTube videos, and you'll be entered to win. So hope everybody's having a really fun and enjoyable holiday season, and thanks for joining us for these 12 days of the Comic Source episodes. Hello, everybody. Merry Christmas. Welcome to a Comic Boom, Comic Source Christmas celebration. This is a special Christmas Day episode. Now, you get me, you get Rocky. I don't know what more you could want. Now, I did previously, right? I did previously say that we're going to have Tom King on for Christmas. That was the plan. That was what Tom wanted to do. But unfortunately, we had some scheduling conflicts, and we weren't able to get it done. We weren't able to get it recorded. So, apologies for everybody that's expecting a Tom King episode today. Hope you guys all enjoyed the Scott Snyder episode that came out on Christmas Eve, and the rest, obviously, of the 12 days of the Comic Source. We had some really fantastic interviews this year. So, yeah, this is just going to be kind of a chat between Rocky and I, talking about the year, talking about, wherever the conversation takes us. So, got my nice, refreshing, old-fashioned, sort of an old-fashioned here. So, what are you drinking, Rocky?
I'm drinking vanilla, Crown Royal vanilla flavor. I don't, as longtime viewers might know, I sort of stopped drinking about 2 years ago, but I didn't, I still drink on occasion for special occasions and family and friends, and this is certainly one of those. So I got no problem sneaking. I just came back from the keg, so I had a nice steak dinner with some wine. So now I got some vanilla Crown. Talking comic books. It's tis the season, my friend. It's good times.
Yeah, so everybody, we're recording this on Monday. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve, and then obviously it's just going to come out Wednesday on Christmas. So before we dive into the comic stuff, Rocky, I'm just curious, what's your, are you off? I went into the office today for half a day. Then I ran some errands in the afternoon. I'm going to be in the office half day tomorrow, and then kind of getting some cooking stuff done with my Mexican roots. We do tamales for Christmas, so I got to make my mole. Fun. If people aren't familiar, that mole is Spanish for sauce, and it's like the sauce that you make out of, if you make it correctly, like from scratch, like my grandma taught me to do, you make it out of dried California chilies. So I got the chili soaking overnight, and I'll make my mole tomorrow. So that's all I got. That's all. I made some fresh salsa today. So yeah, half day of work tomorrow, and then just kind of relaxing. My son's coming into town. He's bringing his girlfriend for the first time, who I've never met. They've been going out a little over a year, so that's exciting.
Oh, wow.
To meet her.
That's kind of a big deal, yeah.
Yeah, so looking forward to that. But yeah, then Christmas here, and then we're having dinner, taking my son and his girlfriend. My wife and daughter were going to dinner at my company's restaurant, Hillstone, here in Phoenix, that Rocky got to partake in while he was here.
Fantastic restaurant. Yeah. Wow, amazing.
Yeah, so we're doing that Thursday. Probably have a nice filet, and that's my holiday plan. So, what about you, my friend?
Well, before I answer your question, let me ask you: did you actually count the number of Christmas trees that you and your wife put up around your house? What's
funny? My daughter. So we had our annual cocktails and cookies party on the first Friday of December, and then the following day, my sister had her entire, my daughter. I don't know about that faux pas. My daughter had her Secret Santa party for her dance company, and they came over, and some of the girls took it upon themselves to try to count how many trees were in the house, not counting any pictures of trees, right? Because then you would count technically what's on the screensaver on my whatever. And many of them did it. less than 10. There's like 17 people on our dance team, I think, or 15, something like that. But it was probably somewhere around 7 or 8 of them counted. They all came up with a different number because it's so many. Like some people were saying like 140, other people are like 160. Then they were going around. Well, did you see that one? Did you see that one? So it's somewhere between probably 150 and like 170. And this
150.
Is yeah.
Where do you store them at?
This is if we can now. This is counting anything that's probably like 3 inches or taller.
Right.
If you're just talking like full size trees, then it's only like 8.
Oh, so you got your superhero action figures around the trees and
yes, over here in my studio, my wife actually gave me 2 trees in the studio this year. One of them is decorated Disney, and the other one has all superhero ornaments on it, which is really cool. There's like Captain America and what's his name? Sam Wilson, Captain America, and Superman, and Wonder Woman, and Batman, and it's awesome. So
wow.
If it's full size trees, then it's only like 8.
Well, that's I'm trying to. That's amazing. That really is. I mean, I was at your place in April of this year and had a wonderful time. I regret that maybe sometime in the near future I'll actually see 140 some Christmas trees in a house. I've never seen that before. That's quite something.
Yeah, and then there's the Christmas Village that my wife puts up every year too. That's her little passion project. Has like a train and all these little lighted buildings, and she adds a little bit to it every year. That's like her tradition thing that she likes to do. So. Yeah.
Well, our Christmas this year was Coralie and I. We just did a lot of house renovations, and I'm happy to report most of them, about 95% are completed. We had new front door, new windows around most of the house, and the basement. We painted the basement, and we've we got a new dishwasher. So we got a lot done in just the month of December, right before Christmas. So we're very pleased about that. So we kind of already gotten each other our Christmas presents, in the sense that in terms of those types of expenses.
Oh yeah.
But no, it's good. Tomorrow we're going to be we spend with family. We're spending the day with family, and it's a potluck, and we do a Chinese gift exchange. And this year our Chinese gift exchange, we had to all buy a gift with the letter R. And we set a budget of $150. So gentlemen's rules, just try not to spend too much below or too much above 150. And then it's got to start with the letter R, and you can be as creative as you want. And I'm quite happy with my gift this year. So I quite enjoyed it. Last year I got the letter H, and my theme for my gift presents was Hero's Journey, which was awesome because I could, I put together Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, like the obstacles and the villains and the hero, and I had a gift for each stage of the hero's journey, and it was awesome. Like everybody loved my gift the best last year, so I pat myself on the back for that. This year it's maybe not so much, but I'm still happy with it this year. But
we haven't. You guys are getting the full behind the scenes experience here, because Rocky and I haven't even talked about this. Being that New Comics Wednesday, is on Christmas this year, and you're probably going to be busy tomorrow on New Year's Eve. Are we even recording a DC Spotlight this week?
Unless we do it tomorrow morning or something, which I could probably squeeze in. We might have it might have to be a little later.
All right, everybody. Hope you guys don't mind. You get this special edition on Christmas, but maybe on Thursday or maybe even Friday. It might be Friday this week, everybody, when the DC Spotlight and the Independent Spotlight comes out. But you got all week. You're probably busy with family and friends as well. We probably should have planned ahead of time and recorded this last week. Although I was super busy this last week and I was on call for work. You were probably super busy, so we'll try to squeeze it in, everybody. But if we miss a week, which I don't want to miss it, we've never missed a week. You have missed a week, or I have missed a week.
That's right.
Never. Yeah. We've been doing it for. We started in 2021, right? With the Future State books.
Yeah, that's right.
As much as I hate to think about it, I still remember when Future State ended, and I had the stack on my little coffee table. I had the stack of books because I went, I decided every once in a while, just decide I'm going all in on this event. I bought almost. Not until toward the end when I realized how bad it was I only I'm only getting one cover. but for the vast majority, I'd say 80% of those titles, I got 2, sometimes 3 covers. And it was just a huge stack. I know I've talked about this before on the podcast, but I felt it was so bad. The quality was so bad. I felt physically ill when I looked at that and knew that I had spent between $200 and $300 on that state stuff, and it was so bad. But I bring it up just to say we've been doing this for over 3 years now, and we've never missed a week.
Yeah, no, it's quite something, and and we'll talk about it a little later. I know I texted you earlier some stats about, because last night we stayed up a little bit later. We usually go to bed like around 9:30, 10, but we stayed up a little bit later to watch a movie, and while we're watching it, I looked at our picks of the week for just this year of 2024, and it was quite amazing. Or not so much amazing, but interesting. Right. Some of the pattern, some of the things that I just noted and I shared with you. Incidentally, you missed January 2nd of last year, and I missed August 27th or something. But we still always managed to have picks of the week. It was very interesting, sort of like our choices. And but we'll get into that as we start talking about it, because I think that there's some very interesting stats about DC, and it made me realize how much a difference time makes in the recollection of a comic book. It was amazing to me how many comics I read that I enjoyed at the moment, but I look back less fondly on. And then also vice versa. Yeah. Comic books that I didn't seem to enjoy, but I look back more fondly on. It's very interesting how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times, if you look back and you can remember what happened, there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said for that. Yeah, but before I say anything, I got to say that this drink right here is kicking my butt. Like I said, it was sort of an old fashioned. So when we had our annual cookies and cocktail party that I was talking about earlier, maybe 2 of the drinks had simple syrup in it, and I had a big batch, and then I had another like store-bought bottle of simple syrup, and we used it all. We used it all that night. There was a lot of booze consumed, which was fun. But I forgot. I haven't had anything to drink since then, and I went to make this old-fashioned night, and I remember I don't have any simple syrup, so I tried to put honey. I tried to put honey instead, but you pour the rye over ice, and you put in your bitters, and then you usually put in the simple syrup and stir it up, and then strain it over a sphere of ice. I tried to use honey instead because I didn't have any simple syrup, but of course it's really cold, so all the honey did was stick to the bar spoon. I didn't realize how much the simple syrup really kind of mellows it out. So yeah, it's like I'm drinking Buffalo Trace on the rock. So, but yeah, those you're right. Those stats were super interesting, and I kind of want to take. We're going to take I can't even talk. How much have I had to drink? We're going to take a circular route to talking about the stats, because here's what I want to do. And this isn't anything new. This isn't going to be big news for anybody who listens for a long time, right? There are those people that think Marvel is better than DC. And there's people that think DC is better than Marvel, and there's people like Rocky and I who seem to enjoy DC a little bit more, and we'll get to why that is in a second. But it's not that I dislike Marvel, and I don't want to put Marvel down per se. But it's interesting because that perception, and it reared its ugly head again last week when the Superman trailer dropped, which I thought was amazing. And I saw I agree. Yeah, and I saw.
We got to talk about that Superman trailer too.
That's exactly that's where I'm headed. But it's so interesting, right? Because I watch a lot of other content creators online. Some of the channels I watch are more on the collectible side, like talking about prices of slabs and key books and that sort of thing. And we all know that other media drive the speculation of who's going to show up in the MCU next, drives that sort of thing or whatever. But it's always Marvel. It's always Marvel. DC. And there are people. I'll specifically shout out Bronzeville Comics, Jim from Bronzeville Comics, who was actually on one of these 12 Days of the Comic Source episodes a few years ago. He's more of a DC guy. He does talk about DC keys, but yeah, they're just not as valuable, and it's all about supply and demand, right? Yeah. For whatever reason, and you could say, well, it's because the MCU has been so much more successful. DC movies haven't seemed to hit in the same way, haven't captured the imagination, the zeitgeist. But that's specifically what I want to point out here. when you get these people that look at the Superman trailer and say, well, I didn't like it, MCU's better, blah, 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 Marvel, and they say that blanket statement, Marvel is better than DC. The reason that bothers me, first of all, it's all subjective. Second of all, they're talking about Marvel and other media. And I'll be the first one to admit that Marvel and other media, whether that be movies, TV shows, or video games, because that's a huge one right now with Marvel Rivals and Marvel Snap and all that. The latest DC game came and went in a matter of like 3 months. DC Duel Challenge or whatever it was. Kind of like a card game, but it was PC only. And it failed like in 3 months. Like nobody was playing it. But if you look at, and we've talked about this a lot lately, but if you look at the quality of the comics that are being made, DC is kicking Marvel's ass. And I'm talking about the quality of the books. I'm not talking about sales, because again, you have these diehard Marvel fans, Marvel zombies, the term has never been more apt, if you will, that will buy, they just buy it out of habit. And I do it too. I bought the whole Bendis Action Comics run, even though I wasn't a fan of it because I wanted to keep my Action Comics run going. But you have so many of those yeah. Marvel titles, and I'm just going to point to the last 3 or 4 years of Harvey nominations and Eisner nominations and Ringo nominations, and how DC, it's exponential, the number of DC nominations you get for books as opposed to Marvel nominations. And that's the thing, it's not one award or another, right? Like there's a selection committee for the Eisners. So you could say, well, it's the selection committee that has bias. When you talk about the Ringos, it's anybody can vote. When you talk about the Harveys, it's industry people that can vote. So you're getting a selection here, right? It's kind of like I'm saying the equivalent of the Academy Awards, which would be the Eisners, the equivalent of the Golden Globes, which would be the Harveys, and the equivalent of the People's Choice Awards, which would be the Ringos. Right, and in every one of these award ceremonies or groups or however you want to label it, DC kicks Marvel's ass. The quality of the stories, and I don't want this to be the case. And the exception may be the Ultimate line. It's doing pretty well and it's being critically well received. But in terms of the other stuff, and again, we can argue about why this is the case. The X-Men has been uneven because Hickman did his thing, and it was such a departure. They want to do something different, but then he stepped away from it, and they've just now been starting to ramp up to head in a different direction with Amazing Spider-Man. And I don't know this for sure. I've only heard rumors, but it seems to make sense to me that Marvel doesn't, and Disney, the corporate overlord, doesn't really want Amazing Spider-Man to do really, really well because they don't own the movie rights to it. Sony does. So they're not putting their best artists and writers and best ideas in Amazing Spider-Man, because why would they want to promote something for another movie studio?
Yeah, it's almost easy to believe that because I stopped collecting Amazing Spider-Man during Nick Spencer's run, but I've only heard negative things about Amazing Spider-Man, quite frankly. I mean, it's just, and it's relentless, and it's always to do something with Mary Jane never coming back. Peter Parker is always doing something different. I don't know. It just sounds like a gong show. And then of course we got the Ultimate Spider-Man doing so well because they brought Mary Jane and they got them together, and it seems like Marvel knows what they need to do, but they just don't want to do it. It's the oddest thing. But like you said, as you said before, I understand as a collector, that collector mentality. And if you're a Marvel zombie, you're going to buy Marvel no matter what because you're loyal to Marvel. I'm like that. I was like that to DC even during the years where I wasn't a huge fan of DC, like the New 52. I wasn't a huge fan of, but I still stuck with it. But yeah, it's funny how that works, but Marvel, you can't beat decades worth of sales, juggernaut. Marvel's for 50 some odd years, Marvel was better than DC. They started in they passed DC in 1960, what was it, 3 or 4 or 5 or something, and never looked back. And those decades of just sales dominance, I think, still is reaping dividends, notwithstanding the more successful movies overall.
Yeah, and that's interesting to me too, right? Because when we talk about the Marvel age, it started in 61, and you look at the MCU and how much of the story ideas that were mined to create these shows were from way back, right? Whether they be the 60s or the 70s, a little bit in the 80s. If you talk about Deadpool, maybe we're getting into the '90s now. Um, but when there was some really great creators and some really great ideas, Marvel, the House of Ideas, and whatever. But I look at now, last let's say the last 10 years, where Marvel hasn't wanted to spend any money on talent. I mean, that nobody can argue that. DC gets better talent. DC pays better page rates for writers and artists. They simply have better talent overall. Yeah, maybe you still have Hickman over at Marvel. Dan Slott, I guess, is another name. But for the most part, especially when it comes to artists, the A-list people work at DC, or they're doing their own thing. They're doing creator owned. Or there's a few people over at Skybound, which is maybe not as much of creator owned as just under Image proper. But what I wonder is, what's going to happen? Like, if it continues, movies and TV mining these ideas, eventually you're going to run out of ideas, because you get to the modern day where you're trying to mine these modern stories. And we already talked about the fact that they don't get any award nominations because they're simply not very good. And I think part of that is that they don't have the talent level. And I'm not blaming Marvel per se. I'm more looking at that corporate overlord of Disney, that they don't want to spend money. You think CB Cebulski doesn't want to go and have a big pot of gold to allure big name creators back to Marvel to have them move the needle? But a lot of times I look at a Marvel book and it's like, I vaguely will know who the artist is. Maybe the writer typically, because they do have certain people over there. They have Al Ewing, although he's doing more and more DC stuff these days. They have Jed McKay. I mentioned Hickman already. Joe Casey's coming on Spider-Man. They did get Gail Simone back to do the X-Men. I mean, the thing is, they do have these characters that they can get some decent talent over there to do this stuff, but it's not. I don't know. I just feel like the talent level, like if we're measuring it on talent level, which again I think points to why DC has so many more nominations in recent years. DC's just kicking Marvel's ass when it comes to talent level. So
this year in particular, in 2024, it's not DC. And by the way, I think we should be a little careful. I think DC had its hills and valleys prior 100%. To 2024. Okay, 100%, so yeah. Just to throw that caveat in, so we're not saying that the shit don't stink at DC from time to time. It happens.
They had some,
right? Yeah. So
trash.
Yeah, but my point is, I want to make for 2024, just to highlight or to magnify Marvel's. What ought to be Marvel's concerns is, you look at 2024, look what DC did. DC has gone in more prominence. We got Absolute Comics. They got their compact comics, which are very successful. Look over at IDW at the success of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which still has the best-selling graphic novel this summer was Last Ronin.
Yeah.
The Energon universe for Image. Dynamite with Thundercats and Space Ghost success. Ghost Machine, Mad Cave with Dick Tracy. We got Distillery, which is probably could be a little bit more successful in terms of the prominence as a publisher, but the quality of Distillery, I've talked about, is quite high. The competition is, just like, I know we sound like broken records sometimes because we talk comics all the time, but 2024, it just, for me at least, it seemed like there was an elevation of the quality. Maybe it was because you and I started to review indie comics this year. Just became more aware of it. Yeah. But it just really seemed to me that just when I really wanted to cut down and I actually set a lower financial budget for myself for comics this year. It didn't. Guess what? That was one of my New Year's resolutions that didn't quite stick. Of course, visiting you in Phoenix didn't help, by the way. But
Yeah, I have the same resolution for this year. But the thing is, like, and again, it's totally a first world problem. I know how lucky I am. I'm so grateful. Like we get all these press copies, and they're not exactly the same. It's not what the final art looks like all the time, whatever. And they got all these watermarks, plastered all over them. But I get a chance to read the book, and at the end of the day, that's me. I'm not, I'm not a guy that collects slabs, and I don't really. I've talked about how I sold my Amazing Spider-Man collection and regretted it immediately, and that's pretty much the only comics I've ever sold. And so I don't really plan on selling my books. So what difference does it make so I don't go out, get keys or whatever? So yeah, it's more. It's not just about budgeting. For me, it's about space. I am so out of space. So yeah, one of my New Year's resolutions is to really cut back on the amount of physical books because I'm just out of room. So yeah,
Yeah.
but we'll see how that goes. But going back to your point about 2024 being such a great year for comics, and partly I'm so grateful that we started the weekly independent because now I'm reading more. I'm going back now. Ever since 2017 or 2016, I think I type out a list. I got the month and date that the books come out, and I write down every title that I want to read for that week. And some of the DC stuff I've been reading because we've been doing it, right. The Marvel stuff, some of it I've read, some of it I haven't. The independent stuff, some of it I've read, some of it I haven't. So I go back and I need to go back years and years if I want to get caught up on some of this stuff. But that's my plan. And then my other thing that I keep saying I'm going to do, and I did it for the first 2 weeks this year, is make a spreadsheet, and when I read something, put my notes so that when we review it, I know. And when we do end of year awards, which I haven't done in many years, it's been since I've done the Comic Source Awards, but I'd like to get back to it. It's all a matter of having the time. But then it would be easier to go back and know, hey, what's my favorite one shot, or what's my favorite, standalone graphic novel, or whatever, because I'd have those notes. So that's another thing that I would like to do this year. But yeah, to your point, I don't know that I would have read the amount of independent stuff and been caught up on it. Like, it would have been on my list. I wanted to read it. But I might not have, But I'm caught up on everything Ghost Machine. I'm caught up on Tin Can Society. I'm caught up on Power Fantasy. I'm caught up on Flash Gordon from Mad Cave. I'm caught up on a number of distillery titles, and I don't know if that would have been the case had we not started doing the independent review. So yeah, I'm really happy about that. But yeah, it has made things a lot like, oh my god, I go into the weekend and I've got 30 comics to read. It's again, it's a first world problem, but it's a commitment, I guess, is the word that I'm looking for. So, a lot more Ghost Machine content coming out in 2025, everybody. So look for that. When it comes to independent, I don't know that there's anything that I'm necessarily looking forward to other than covering more Ghost Machine stuff. And obviously what Distillery's doing is great, and Mad Cave, them continuing to do things. But is there anything that you're looking forward to, or any other thoughts you have about indies, Rocky?
Oh my God. It just so happened, last night I said, as I was watching a movie with the wife, I actually came up with, it's very, very interesting. Last year, 2020, for 2023, I put together a list of my favorite indies, and I was going to do a video on it. I actually had the thumbnails done. I never actually ended up doing it. But to make a long story short, I had a list of 42 indies comics that I had read to choose my top 20. I've done my list for this year, and these are the indies that I read. Now, bear in mind, this is a lot. It was 67 independent titles that I read this year. That is huge, especially when you factor in that we review all DC. That's a lot of comics. I'm a busy guy. But I really do read a lot of comics, and it just blew me away. And I actually did. I haven't done my top 20 yet. I've got, but I mean, I got the 60, and there's so many are so bloody good. Probably off the top of my head, near the top, I really like. I like anything by Mark Millar. I really love Prodigy and the Nemesis Rogues Gallery. I love that. I love Power Fantasy. I love Power Fantasy. You and I reviewed that with Kieran Gillen, and I thank you for putting me onto that, because otherwise I went back and I've read to the first issue now. There's a wonderful. There was only two comics put out last year called Mythologies by Tim Lane. First and second issue came out. Amazing, absolutely amazing. It's so different, but I'm looking forward to more of that. Napalm Lullaby, I caught up with that fine with Rick Remender. Ice Cream Man, I can continue to love that. There's a series at Dark Horse called Paranoid Gardens by Gerard Way. It's awesome. At some point, it just comes out at the oddest time, and I'm one. It's just fantastic. There's a series called Patra by James Robinson and Scott Collins. Amazing art. Scott Collins' art's a little bit different on it. James Robinson, great stuff. Wrong Earth by Ahoy Comics. Wrong Earth Dead Ringers by Tom Pear and Jamal Ingle. I've been loving that. There's so many. Of course, you already mentioned you already mentioned all the Ghost Machine titles. Redcoats is my favorite. I particularly love that Einstein issue with Einstein on his deathbed with Redcoat. I love that. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees by Patrick Horvath. I thought that was great with the sort of like the teddy bear that's the serial killer, anthropomorphic characters. I really enjoyed that. There's a series by John Ridley that nobody ever talked about. It wasn't on anybody's radar. No one's talked about it, called Ministry of Compliance by John Ridley. It's one of my favorite miniseries all year. I'm going to be talking about it. It's just, again, it's political. It's in the future. It's all the stuff that John Ridley likes to write. But at the same time, it's also the stuff that people like to criticize him about. So, it's like one of those things. You take it with a grain of salt, but I loved it. And the last title that really blew me away was I thank you for that, was Gunslinger Spawn #1. Very impressive. But there's so many more. Profane, Silicon Bandits, Ain't No Grave, Flash Gordon by Jeremy Adams, The Call by Kelly Thompson, Big Game, The Big Event, Big Game by Mark Miller and Pepe Larraz during the year. Big Burn by Distillery, I really love that. The Valiant, I got the entire Valiant Resurgence run. I got like I think there's a total like 35 or 40. Plus I got all the Bloodshot. I got all the Bloodshot covers for the first 4 issues of Bloodshot, plus all the 6. So I got I got to pick it up the next business day. The post office called. We had a Canada-wide we had a postal strike, and anyways, so finally I can pick up some comics. So anyways, just really great stuff here, and Minor Arcana by Jeff Lemire. I really enjoyed that too. But there's so many indie comics that I'm loving, and the truth is, it's the more I talk about it, and the more when I went through it, the more I realized that if I was to actually rank them in terms of quality, I probably would. There'd only be probably 5 or 6 DC that would rank in the same category as a lot of these indies that I've been reading, because just really, really, really great. I don't know. What about yourself? Were there any indies that stood out for you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are on the list. I don't know if I can think of any that you didn't name. But what I will say is, yeah, Rick Remender's been doing some fantastic stuff. He plotted Tin Can Society with Peter Warren. It is a giant generator book. That's Remender's imprint over at Image, and yeah, that book is just fantastic. I got a chance to, and again, this was one of the 12 Days of the Comic Source episodes, everybody. So I hope you got a chance to see it. Talking about the book that Remender has coming up with Paul Azaceta, called The Seasons, about these 4 girls that are named after the 4 seasons. Their last name is Season, and their parents were these world-renowned detectives, and they've gone missing. It's just a really kind of weird, whimsical aesthetic, and it was a fantastic chat. First time I've ever had Remender on the show. First time I had a chance to meet him, and he was really awesome. And also, you mentioned John Ridley and Ministry of Compliance. I have that. That's one of those, again, that I bought all of them. They're all on my reading list. I haven't read any of them because it's John Ridley. If John Ridley's writing it, I'm going to read it. I just haven't got to it. And Ridley was on. I never had John Ridley on the show, not for lack of trying before. But I finally had him on for the episode about the Atom Project. So that was awesome. Yeah, he was an interesting guy to interview. I'd love to have a longer form. He doesn't really do interviews. He's just not that guy. I think he worries about being stuff taken out of context, what have you, which I totally respect and understand. But yeah, he's a fantastic writer, so yeah, definitely be checking that out.
I just want to interject and say that I think that the writer that's had the best year, if I was to do the best writer, I'd have to give it to Scott Snyder, because when I look at all the stuff he did for Dark Horse, from Canary to Dudley Do Things, to Clear, to all those things that we reviewed, and that so he wrote them a couple years ago, but they were published by Dark Horse this year. Yep. and then he goes in and he writes Absolute Batman and he kicks ass and he's spearheading really the DC All In special and the working with other DC creators. I think that Scott Snyder's had an absolutely stellar year. And he's taken the momentum that when he refreshed his batteries, when he left DC during all that corporate turmoil, when then Didio was let go, he mastered his craft with his indie work, and it's out there for everyone to collect. It's there, and then when he comes back with Absolute Batman, my God, he's just done a fantastic job. And all the while he's done it, he's had writers' workshops. So his genius, he's helped teach other people as well, other writers as well. A lot of it's free online. And even on YouTube and on his Substack. I mean, it's just he's had an absolutely stellar year, and I think one of the more underrated ones. And even though he's got a lot of attention with Absolute Batman, it's well deserved. It's well deserved.
Yeah, it's so interesting to have you say that on this episode that comes out on Christmas Day, being that the Christmas Eve episode is my conversation with Scott. I tried to touch on, I wanted to touch on everything that he had written, but we just didn't have enough time because he had a limited amount of time. But I tried to talk about as many of them as I could toward the end. Just let me throw something out real fast. Let me throw Canary out. But it's a fantastic conversation. So I hope Rocky hasn't had a chance to listen to it yet, everybody. But I hope you guys, by the time you are listening to this, hopefully you got the chance to listen to Scott. He's just so fantastic, and he's so grateful, and he's so appreciative. And you're right. Like he's been killing on Absolute Batman. And it's so funny for all the success he's had, and again, he's very grateful and he feels very lucky. There's still that little bit of self-doubt that he has. It's just who Scott is. That he's like, he'll ask me, like we finished the recording for the episode that comes out on Christmas Eve, and then he was asking me my opinion on some of the other things of his that I've read that haven't come out yet, because I've actually already read. I talked to him last week. It was about a week before the episode was coming out on Christmas Eve, or maybe even, I think I recorded last Monday, so it was like a week and a day ahead of time. I had already read Absolute Batman 3, and I'd already read Absolute Batman 4, because we have the press copy or whatever. So we were talking a little bit about that, and he's asking me, and he's having these, I'm like, Scott, dude, you got it, dude, you nailed it. It's good. Don't worry, it's so funny. But I love that, right? He's constantly, he wants to make sure he's doing his best, and he cares, what's coming across. And I would say he cares what the fans think, because he's not one of those writers that wants to do fan service, but he's just curious to see, hey, are people picking up what I'm putting down? Basically, how's this being received? How is it being received in the way that I wanted it to, or what have you? But I am a little surprised. Like you're not wrong. He put out, in terms of things that were published this year, he had a fantastic year. But when you said, one writer that I have to shout out that I think had a fantastic year, I thought you were going to say Jeremy. Is what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, well, I can talk. Yeah. We're going to talk. Yeah. Jeremy's on my list to talk about tonight. Jeremy, of course. In fact, Jeremy Adams is a name that's going to come up when we talk about our picks of the week.
Yeah, let's go. Go ahead.
You want to talk about that now?
Yeah, let's talk about it now, and we can fold our Jeremy conversation into that as well. Well, the conversation with Jeremy, everybody, was the episode that was kicked off the 12 Days of the Comic Sources here. Yeah. And it was a fantastic chat. And the Aquaman in space stuff really has people talking. Yeah. And a lot of you guys really loved that episode. I got a lot of good feedback about it. So it was fantastic.
Well, it's it makes your job easier, not to take away from your interview skills, because you certainly have that in spades, my friend. But Jeremy Adams is a wonderful person to talk to. I know that because I've certainly talked to him myself. Trevor and I, back a couple of years ago, when Jeremy Adams, we took him out for supper, and when he came to the Calgary Expo, and great guy, and the guy knows how to write. And it's funny, Aquaman in space. Well, there's also Flash Gordon in space. There's also Green Lanterns like to spend a lot of time in space too. I think we got a pattern there for Jeremy Adams. I mean, but he's a great writer. He wrote a great Green Lantern even when he was, basically trapped on Earth. But for those, just a reminder for those people who about Jace and I, we every week when we review DC Comics, we always do our pick of the week every week. And for the year of 2024, I actually went back and I looked at what all our picks actually were. and it was very interesting. And no, Jace, I already sent you the stats on this, um, but the number one, the title that got picked, that the one character got that title, DC title that got picked the most for pick of the week was Jeremy Adams' Green Lantern 6 times. So 6 weeks. For 6 of the weeks in 2024, the best title, which basically means for 6 of the months. I mean, so that's like
half of
for
the time.
6 months.
Yeah, half of the issues.
Half the time.
Yeah.
Jeremy Adams had the best title, and there was also, we can cheat and say 7 because Green Lantern War Journal (PKJ) was also, so for the Green Lantern mythology itself, a total of 7, but for Jeremy Adams' Green Lantern 6 times, and that was the number one. That was our highest rated pick of the week, most consistent out of all of them in the top 10.
And there have been some fantastic writers on Green Lantern since Jeff Johns left. I mean, what Jeff Johns did with Green Lantern was transformative. It was, he brought the sales numbers on he created potential for story with creating the emotional spectrum and all that. Robert Venditti followed him on it. That was a tough job. I thought Venditti did a fantastic job with it. There's been some other writers that have been on it since. Obviously Grant Morrison with what he did with Liam Sharp was really interesting as well. But to me, nobody has reached anywhere close to the Jeff Johns level in terms of just new ideas and making it exciting until Jeremy. And again, this is a conversation I had with Jeremy on that episode. That he's bringing up the fractal lanterns and people being able to channel emotional spectrum energy without even having a ring. Again, you're just opening up so much potential for story.
And I just want to say that it could have been higher for Jeremy Adams, but the only reason it isn't is because when you and I do our picks of the week, sometimes I think we both feel a little bit guilty if we pick the same comic.
Yeah.
There were weeks where we both wanted to pick Green Lantern, but we didn't. So one of us picked something different.
Yep.
So I would say to Jeremy, if he's listening, you could have got more than 6, but we had to share the love a little bit to your fellow creators. But it was quite comical. But what a good problem to have. Too many picks of the week for one character.
Yeah, and I'm really curious. I mean, I can't wait for his Aquaman because we loved his Flash run. He went to Green Lantern. He's taking these classic characters and breathing fresh life into them and fresh ideas. And hopefully, I'll say, again, Jeremy, I hope you're listening. I hope 2025 is the year we get a creator-owned book from Jeremy, or at least the announcement for creator-owned. Because again, he has these great ideas and he loves the characters and he loves the DC continuity and what have you. But if you're talking about creator-owned, then the blinders, the reins, the sky's the limit. He unleash the hounds. He can do anything. He doesn't have anybody saying, "Oh no, you can't do that with that character. Oh, that idea is too crazy." Whatever. So we'll see.
It's funny with Jeremy is that every week at Twitter, it was almost like a staple. Every week I'd go on Twitter and I'd see Jeremy Adams opening up his next box of comps with surrounded by his kids.
Yep.
And I'm so envious of that. I got a beautiful daughter myself, and she gets excited, just not about comic books, but his kids are around him and bugging him, and he's opening up and he's showing off all the Green Lantern comics that he wrote. And my God, that's my dream life. When I die and come back, I'm going to come back as a Green Lantern writer and hopefully have a life of Jeremy Adams.
Well, what are some of the other stats that you found? Do
you want me to? Do you want me to just say the top 10 top picks, or do you want me to just go one?
However you want to.
Okay.
Disseminate.
Well, the second one that got 5. We have a tie for second. A tie for second between Primer, both her series, the Primer series, and then there was Primer Clashing Colors, right? So I combined those two, in fairness. So that was Primer came in at 5, and then Superman tied with Superman at 5 as well.
Oh,
and
Williamson.
So just as a compliment to it was Krudansky, right, on Primer. Who's the writer?
Co-writers Jennifer Murrow and Thomas Krajewski.
What a high compliment to them every time. And it's funny because when I was listening to the picks of the week and reviewing it, when you and I were talking about it, it was always, this was just good quality stuff. This was good quality storytelling, and it had some stiff competition.
Yeah.
And Primer is another one where you and I, well, I picked Primer. Well, you're going to pick something different because, well, you picked the Rocky. I was going to pick that, but I'm going to pick something else. Yeah. Well, it's like, Primer had the same problem Green Lantern had. It was just so good, but, well, we got to pick somebody else and share the love. Yeah. And so that's what we did. And, but yeah, great problem to have. Third was tied for second was Superman and Primer, both at 5. Joshua Williamson, I mean, just, again, hitting it out of the park, just incredible stuff. We had for the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th place, they all got 4. They all got 4, were chosen 4 times. And they're Gotham by Gaslight, The Kryptonian Age, Wonder Woman, Tom King's Wonder Woman, Action Comics, Kneel Before Zod, and Nightwing. All got 4. Were chosen 4 times throughout the year.
I'm surprised that Kneel Before Zod, because I feel like overall that underwhelmed a little bit. Wonder Woman, those are probably all mine. I know you're not a fan.
One of them was mine. One of them was mine.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I like the one. I really like some of the action and I said, the individual titles individual stories I liked. But it's funny you say your comment about Kneel Before Zod. That's an example where when I look back at Kneel Before Zod, I'm actually disappointed with the series because I thought it made him a little bit too overzealous and almost it made him less interesting. Evil, but less interesting to me. Yeah. But yet the journey getting there, I really enjoyed the opening issue. I really loved the dysfunctional relationship with his son when he cast out his son, Lor-Zod. I felt the impact of the death of Ursa in issue 3. And that was one of the picks of the week. But it was after issue 3 where it really kind of went downhill. Yeah. And yet not downhill enough that we didn't give it another pick of the week. But no, I thought it was interesting looking back. I enjoyed the journey, half the journey, but because the second half of the journey to the destination was disappointing, it doesn't have that much. Yeah, it doesn't have much reverence for me. Nailing the landing is so important is the lesson I get from that.
Yeah, I agree. This is the last couple of issues. But hopefully we'll get an upswing on Zod. We saw those hints of him being involved with Lois's powers in the Superwoman special, so how that's going to play out, we'll have to wait and see. And then, you mentioned Kryptonian Age. That was that could have been picked. We could have picked that every week it came out. It was so good.
That was another one, yeah.
Yeah, and we have the second half of that story coming, but except it's going to be called something else. It won't be called Kryptonian Age. I think it's called like the League or Justice League forming. It's basically the characters coming together. So Batman, Gotham by Gaslight, the League comes or whatever it's called. What's interesting, I mean, they still call it Batman Gotham by Gaslight because you get that Batman in front of it. It gets put in the Batman section on the shelf, and people just Batman is the engine that drives DC. So that's interesting. What about the?
I was just good.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Go ahead.
We were talking about minis here. We were texting back. We were talking about minis.
Yeah, actually, what also got 4 was the Absolute Power, the main series of Absolute Power. Was got 4 as well,
so
which
every
was
issue
surprised me. Almost every issue. While there was that intro issue that made our top pick of the week, plus 3 of the. So it was actually 4 times Absolute Power, and then Task Force 7 made it once. The Task Force 7 miniseries got 1 pick of the week.
That was the Jeremy Adams issue.
Yeah, that was the Jeremy Adams issue. It was.
It was the Green Lantern Jeremy Adams issue. Yeah, we love ourselves some Green Lantern. That's fantastic. Yeah.
But it's funny because Absolute Power is another one where I got Mark Waid. He got me so excited. There were so many cool concepts, but because the cool concepts never had time to really grow because it was such a fast-paced series. Particularly, I was hoping for a big battle with the crime syndicate. It was sort of it was alluding to the battle. The multiversal villains were going to come and attack the Earth, and it was going to be this big thing. Amanda Waller's end game was her. If she was going to be defeated, she had all these villains from all over the multiverse, and led by the crime syndicate. Or at least that's what I understood to be the case. And then and then it was all for naught. And then all it took was a couple flashes from our universe to shut down the doorway, and that was it. It was such an underwhelming ending and so disappointing to me because the promise was so epic. I wish he would have had, and it's not because Mark Waid's not a great writer, it's just that he never had enough real estate, not enough, I guess, not enough time to really. I would have loved to have had that series flushed out. Because I thought it had a lot of potential, but we'll have to wait and see, because I know that Amanda Waller has escaped or will escape, and there's going to be a Secret Six team coming together, according to the rumors to come in.
Yeah, that reminds me. But when we finish recording this, stay on the line, and we'll tell you about the stuff that I was told.
Yeah,
can't share it publicly, but yeah, interesting you say that. Like, in a way, Absolute Power is not really over because we're still dealing with the consequences, and they seem to be growing. Again, everybody, if you listen to the 12 Days of Comic Source episode with John Ridley and Ryan Parrott and Mike Perkins, we had a fantastic chat about the Atom Project, where they're trying to figure out how to get everybody their powers back. Black Lightning from Brandon Thomas ties into that as well. We're also seeing ramifications in the Justice League Unlimited title. So yeah, it's not really over, but it goes back to, and we talked about this at the time, Rocky. Remember, we talked about the fact that we used to have these big events, and there used to be 12 issues. If you look back at the granddaddy of them all, Crisis on Infinite Earths, still one of the best of all time. Yeah. You can even go across the street to Marvel and say, Marvel Superhero Secret Wars again, although that didn't tie into a bunch of regular titles the way that Crisis on Infinite Earths did. Now, Secret Wars 2 did, but that was only 8 issues. But my point being that then they started doing this thing where it was an event every year, usually during the summer, and they started truncating them in terms of, hey, we need to get it done in a shorter period of time. It can't drag out for a year. So, you look at things like Infinite Crisis or Final Crisis, and they're 6 issues, and what have you. But it was still different, right? Like, more issues, 6 issues or 8 issues, and typically they were oversized, and you got a lot of chunk of story, and they would cross over into this or that sort of tangentially. But you didn't have all these, well, I say that. You did a little bit in Infinite Crisis. You certainly did with Final Crisis. We had Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds, and Final Crisis this and that, whatever. And that was when DC started to pivot over. But now when we have these events, now it's just all these one-shots and all these anthologies and whatever, all coming out in a very short period of time, 3 or 4 months, and the entire event is over. So instead of going tall, instead of going vertical and putting a lot of story in the spine series, now they're going horizontal, right? Everything is, got to buy all these different titles, and it's a way to pad their bottom line, but also a way to just get it done faster. And we talked about this a lot, everybody. If you didn't listen to it, don't check out our DC Spotlights. Go check them out on Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom ! On YouTube. And you can hear us talking about this, like, hey, this happened in this regular issue of Superman that crosses over with Absolute Power. It's important enough it should have been in the main series. Or it happened in, information in Absolute Power Origins or Absolute Power Task Force 7 and events. They should have been in the main series. Again, you only have so many pages in the main spine books, and yeah, it ends up feeling like you're missing out on stuff. Now, Mark Waid even said, he's like, I'm trying to make it where all you have to do is read the spine series, and you don't have to buy everything if you don't want to. But even so, you lose out on some of the context and the richness of the story if you're not reading everything. Now, we do read everything because, again, we get the press copies and it makes it easy for us, but not everybody has that luxury. Most people don't, and not everybody has an unlimited budget to spend on comics. So, yeah, I wish it would go back to how it was before, but unfortunately, DC's owned by Warner Brothers, and Discovery, David Zaslav actually is the one that calls the shots, right? So it's all about the mighty bottom line. And over at Disney, or over at Marvel, it's Disney calling it. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to go back to in my mind, the better way to do these events, which is to let them take a little longer chronologically, to have 8 months to tell the story or 6 months to tell the story. Don't have so many anthologies and one-shots to tie in. Put it all in the main series. I just think, unfortunately, those days are behind us. So,
yeah, but there is one example of our pick of the week that made it on our list 3 times. That was a series that I think was a little bit of an outlier, and is an example of how I think you would agree how we want miniseries to be done and events to be done. And that was the Justice League versus Godzilla and King Kong.
Yep.
That was on our list 3 times by Brian Bucciolano. I butchered his name, but that really was. I have to admit, I completely forgot about that miniseries until I went through the pick of the list and started. I was like, oh my God, that's right. That did.
We're getting a sequel next year.
I know, and rightly so. The sales were great on that. The variant covers exploded. DC made a lot of money on it. I'm always whining and bitching about too many variant covers, but hey, man, I get it. It's the reality. It's the way things are. And I have to be honest, there is a lot of very good looking covers dealing with King Kong, Godzilla, and various posters beating up members of the Justice League, not to mention some members of the Legion of Doom. It was a great story. It was well written. There was death. There was consequences. There was a little bit of everything. It was fantastically plotted. It possessed a high amount of verisimilitude. It honored the mythologies of Godzilla, King Kong, the Valley of the Monsters. It reminded me, it had a lot of callbacks to like the Monarch, which was the company that was always in control, or the arch nemesis of Godzilla. It was just, anyways, it was a surprisingly good series, and it was done right. It was easily accessible. It was easy to catch on to. You didn't need to buy a bunch of different books to figure it out. And each issue seemed to have a review of the previous issues. And I know that because we reviewed every issue, and it was always easy to get right up to speed as to what was happening and going on. So it was very well done.
Yeah, fantastic art by Christian Doucet as well. I actually only bought, I might have bought the first issue.
You got the one that roars, right? You have the roaring
cover.
issue, the one that
that's
sounds?
what I was gonna say. So yeah, I didn't buy too many physical issues. I may have bought the first issue, but then like later, like I think 3 months after the first issue came out, because there was a little bit of trouble with production, they came out with a Godzilla version and a King Kong version of them that roar when you open them up. I don't know how long those are going to last. They come polybagged, and I never actually opened them. But they were in the back of my car for like 3 or 4 days. And sometimes I'd turn the corner and they would like shift and they would roar. And the first time it happened, I was like, what's that noise? But yeah, I got the two, the Godzilla that roars and the King Kong that roars. But yeah, you mentioned the reverence that, or the kind of the way that DC treated the books. I mean, those were done in conjunction with Legendary, who owns the Universal Monsters and whatever. When they made the announcement at New York Comic Con this year, it was on the Jim Lee panel, and Brian Buccioletta was there as well. But they brought out the guy from Legendary, and they talked about how well the series did or whatever, and then they brought Brian up and announced that they were doing a sequel. But it just goes to show how important and how it is very much a partnership. And if you're not aware, everybody, the sequel is going to take place on the monster world, so it's going to lean a little more toward the Legendary side, if you will. And Legendary does put out some books, some comics. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be really good. All right, what else you got, Rocky?
Okay. Well, next on the list, now for the next 6 titles I'm talking about in terms of our, actually, Justice League v. Godzilla and King Kong, that was number 10. Numbers 11 through 16 for our top picks. They all were voted. We all made them. They all were voted twice. We gave them picks of the week. And number 11 is Alan Scott Green Lantern, which, oh my God, I'm drawing a what's that?
Tim Sheridan.
Tim Sheridan, thank you. Alan Scott Green Lantern was an interesting series because you and I both loved it. And I thought the subject matter, it dived right into the subject matter of his sexuality. I thought it incorporated it very well, even ingeniously into the 1940s, into the history of the times, and just the whole ambiance of the World War, the pre and post World War II era. I thought it was done so well. It got a little bit, I think maybe touched. It did some maybe things which could be seen a little bit controversial for those that were really diehard proponents of the original iteration of Alan Scott. But the essential mythology was there. It confronted not only the sexuality, but it also did have some things to say about Roman Catholicism, because it had that issue when the Spectre showed up.
Yep.
And the Spectre, who's the embodiment of the Judeo-Christian religion, basically saying that Alan Scott is not. It's not, you're not evil, you're a good man. That, that may have ruffled some feathers in certain corners of readership for reasons of their own individual belief and faith. But regardless, I mean, it is what it was. That never bothered me. I thought it did an excellent job updating the origin to a new age, particularly alongside another series of Wesley Dodd's The Sandman by Robert Venditti. I thought it was really good because it took two JSA characters and elevated them. Incidentally, Sandman only made our pick of the week once. Wesley Dodd's Sandman, and that was for the first issue. But Alan Scott Green Lantern made it twice.
Yeah, I'll say Cian Torme, who's now doing the art on the Question All Along the Watchtower. Love him. He's a fantastic artist. He did Green Lantern. Riley Rosmo, I think, was part of the reason that we really enjoyed the Sandman book.
That's right.
We have been critical of him at times, but I think you and I both have. Either we're getting more used to his art, but I think it might be a little bit of both of these things. I also think his art style is evolving to a style that...
It is. I think it's evolved, yeah. He's elevated it. He's elevated his art. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's gotten better, and his style has evolved a little bit to kind of the aesthetic that you and I enjoy. I think it's both. I think he's gotten better. I mean, I sent you I think it was a variant cover that was solicited. That I think it was for an Absolute Batman book, and it looked fantastic. And I somebody posted it, and I looked it up, and I'm like, this is Riley Rosmo. I didn't even recognize it because it wasn't the super exaggerated style that he does sometimes. And I sent it to you, and I was like, yeah, you'll never believe who this is. And I'm like, this is Riley Rosmo. You're like, wait, what? Yeah, because it looks just very traditional. So yeah, he's very talented. I've never had a chance to meet him. I've heard he's a really nice guy though.
Yeah. Another interesting, Hellblazer Dead in America for 2 weeks, twice got the pick of the week, which Cy Spurrier, you and I were pretty hard on him regarding the Flash. Yeah. But then we'd get an issue of Hellblazer Dead in America, and he'd sort of redeem himself. So it was, it was one thing about Cy Spurrier, and that's one of the good things about reading as many comics as we do. I think if a person, if you only read a handful of comics every month, you might be predisposed into unfairly judging certain writers as maybe not being particularly good. But of course, we should know better because, when writers can write different things and they can write different topics. And it's amazing the difference how just a character can make, because I really think Cy Spurrier understands John Constantine very, very well, like the back of his hand. But his Flash, I don't think I could say, I could almost be insulting, but I won't. But I just don't think he understands or has a handle on Wally West or the Flash concept as well as he does on John Constantine. And that really shows in the writing. But that's the great thing about comics is that, you never, ever know. So the next time, I would just say to anyone listening, what I've learned, and I know you have too, Jace, is that just when, if a writer that I'm maybe not particularly fond of, I find out is going to be writing a character I like, I try not to prejudge, because you never know. It might be that character where there's that particular passion that sort of hits and clicks, and they're off to the races. And for Cy Spurrier, I don't think he's written a character yet that's more interesting than John Constantine in his skill set, but at least for that I can see for DC. But I've not read all his stuff outside of DC, so maybe I can't say that.
It's really interesting, too, because I definitely feel like he handles Supernatural, because he has these really weird, out there, esoteric ideas, so I feel like he fits in Supernatural. But at the same time, I think another person that really had a great handle and a great run on Constantine was Garth Ennis. And the other character I think that Garth Ennis writes, as good, if not better than anybody, is the Punisher. So I would be sort of curious to see Cy Spurrier take on the Punisher, but I mean, if he's going to go, Punisher's not a character, I think, much like Wally West, where you can go really weird. I don't think it would work. So I think if Cy Spurrier took on the Punisher, it would either be really, really good or really, really bad. There'd be no middle ground. It would either be a hit or it would just crash and burn.
Yeah, it was funny. I just want to give a shout out in this week's issue of The Flash, which we're going to be reviewing sometime either tomorrow or later this week. Minor spoiler, not a big deal, but it was kind of funny because Cy Spurrier's Flash run, the first 13 issues were just scientific gobbledygook that was basically resulting in the Speed Force having a baby.
Yeah.
Is basically what the end of it was. And if you don't understand, for those listening and you're baffled by what I just said, the Speed Force having a baby, that's okay. We're all baffled. In the current issue of The Flash, it's kind of funny. There's a conversation between Jay and Irie where Jay starts talking about the Speed Force again having an offspring, and Irie interrupts him and says, "Oh God, don't start talking space gobbledygook again."
Yeah.
And it was almost like it was Cy Spurrier talking through the character saying, "Okay, I heard what you're saying, guys."
Yeah, I get it. It didn't work.
It's kind of funny.
We're pivoting.
Sorry.
Yeah. You sent me a text message talking about mini series. Or do you have? Is there anything else on the list you wanted to mention before we?
Well, just the other ones. The other ones were Batman Dark Age got 2 votes. Batman First Night by Dan Jurgens got 2 votes. Batman Brave and the Bold, that anthology, got 2 votes. And Batman, the biggest surprise, the big Batman, the comic book Batman, the big leader for DC, only got 2. Only twice did we put the Batman title by Chip Zdarsky on the list as pick of the week.
I don't know if that happened this year, but it's hard for me to pick a book with Batman jumping from the moon. I think that happened last year.
Yeah. That would have been last year. But one of the picks for Batman this week was me, because I really liked the first issue of the Joker year of the Joker of the new Joker origin. I like that issue, but I can't remember how it got a second vote. But to talk about miniseries, I'm pretty sure I counted all of them correctly, but there was 19 miniseries in 19 miniseries that made our pick of the week. 19 times a miniseries from DC made our pick of the week. And if you would have told me that, I didn't even know that DC had that miniseries, but I'm going to rattle them off real quick. In order of the most. Primer got 5. Gotham by Gaslight 4. Kneel Before Zod 4. Justice League versus Godzilla and Kong 3. Sandman, Wesley Dodds got 1. Superman Lost, issue 10 got 1. Alan Scott Green Lantern got 2. Hellblazer Dead in America 2. Batman Offworld got 1. Penguin got 1. Sinister Sons got 1. Absolute Power miniseries got 4. Absolute Power Task Force 7 got 1. Batman Dark Age got 2. Nice House by the Sea got 1. Plastic Man No More got 1. Little Batman got 1. Black Canary so far got 1. And Batman First Night got 2. So bearing in mind we haven't reviewed the comic books for the final week of December 25th, 2024. But it was interesting to me. I doing this analysis made me realize how important miniseries are to DC, because we think of main titles, and you and I, we've talked about before about the lifeblood of DC being the more obscure characters, and like the Blue Beetles and maybe the Metamorphos, and and sometimes we might sort of scoff at these miniseries coming out with these obscure characters, but more often than not, I'm realizing here that it's these miniseries that more often than not caught our attention. Were not only better than we thought they were, they made our pick of the week. And, it's not like you and I are shills for the industry here. I mean, we got 17 comics. I mean, bear in mind, when I read 17 DC comics in a week, sometimes I don't feel like reading 17 comics. So if something stands out, guess what? That means I'm actually entertained, because sometimes I'm, after a hard day's work, I don't, I want to come back and relax. I'm not necessarily always want to read comics, but I do. And it's the highest compliment to DC this year that more often than not, I enjoyed the hell out of reading a lot of the comics in DC in 2024, more so than I had in previous years. And 19 of our picks of the week were by miniseries. Did that surprise you?
Yeah, it did. It very much did. And I didn't think about it beyond, well, we're getting something fresh, and maybe it leans into something I was going to mention earlier. You talked about, the fact we're talking about we're maybe enjoying indies more than anything, more than Marvel or more than DC or whatever. And I think part of that is what leans into the idea with, if I'm reading a Batman book or Superman book or Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, whatever, it's in the DC universe. These characters have been around for decades. It's very hard to do something that feels, fresh, and it's nearly impossible to do something that's wholly original, where we don't kind of see what's coming, or at least have an idea of what's coming. When it's a new book, when it's an indie book with characters like Tin Can Society that we've never read, we have no idea, or Power Fantasy, we've never read, we don't know these characters, we don't, haven't been reading them for decades, we don't know what to expect, and it's that unexpectedness, that level of, hey, I have no idea where this story is going to go next. I think that's kind of refreshing. Now, DC can't do that wholly the way an independent book can, because again, you have an established universe and you got to have characters that are going to behave in a certain way, readership has a certain expectation or whatever. But if you're talking about a mini, especially for an obscure character, to your point, you do have a little bit more of that, right? For a couple of reasons. First of all, the characters aren't as well established. Certainly you could say Wesley Dodd's Sandman is not as well established as Batman or Superman, right? So it can go in different, more directions, more unexpected directions. But also from the creator's standpoint, they don't have as many eyes on them going, no, you can't do that. Yes, you can do that. No, you can't do that. That sort of thing. So I think that's part of it. I'm going to throw this on you. If you had, let's say you had the possibility to have 3 minis come out in 2025 with an obscure DC character, what 3 DC characters would you like to see get a miniseries
in 2025?
In 2025, yeah.
Obscure. Oh, yeah. My God.
I can go first if you need a little bit of time to think about it.
Yeah, maybe go first.
Okay, so I would love to see... I'll start with the one I think is least likely to see, and also because it would be a bit of a throwback. One of my favorite comic series of all time is Vigilante. The Adrian Chase Vigilante, I think it started in 87, 86, 87. Marv Wolfman had all kinds of...
How do you bring that back? He committed suicide.
Yeah, it would have to be, again, you would go back and tell stories set in that time period, and we've seen them do that. Marvel's done it a lot. They brought J.M. DeMatteis back to do some, Clone Saga era stuff. But yeah, I would, and that's just selfishly because that's one of my favorite characters of all time, and I feel like you could tell some stories. But yeah, that's the least likely to happen. I don't expect that to happen. That's like purely a selfish kind of thing. But it would be interesting. Like I would love to see Tom King's take on that character. Some of these more modern storytellers that are familiar with that character. But yeah, that's least likely to happen. The second one would be a little easier, but is less likely to happen, I think, than my first pick. Number 2, I'd say Blue Devil. I love Blue Devil, David Cassidy. I love that character. You know how much I love him, Rocky. We both got to meet Paris Cullins at Phoenix Comic-Con. He was fantastic to chat with. I got my issue 1 of Blue Devil signed by him. And yeah, I just love that character, the weirdness magnet idea and whatever. And I would want somebody I would want Paris Cullins to draw, but if not Paris, somebody that's in that style, a little bit more cartoony, a little bit more of an animated style, and have it be just weird and out there. Not Cy Spurrier weird and out there, but maybe Dan Waters weird and out there. In fact, I think Dan might be, not that his stuff's really that humorous and there's a level of humor, but I'd be willing to give Dan a try. I think he's really talented. And then the number 1, I think this would be most likely to see, because we actually just saw him show up in an issue of Justice League Unlimited, would be Firestorm. Because I don't even know. I mean, Firestorm's gone through so many different iterations. Is it Ronnie Raymond? Is it Jason Roush? Is it whoever? It'd be nice to get a Firestorm mini. And I'll give an honorable mention to Captain Atom, except he sort of does have one with the Atom Project, and I've only read the first issue of that, so I don't know where that's going to go or whatever. So we kind of already have one that he's a part of. But yeah, I would love to, again, selfishly, I love the New 52 Captain Atom series by J.T. Kroll and Freddie Williams II. Had a fantastic interview with them this year talking about that. I would love to see them come back on it. But again, very, very unlikely to happen. But yeah, I'll go Adrian Chase Vigilante, Blue Devil, and Firestorm would be characters that I see.
You started off, and I was going to say Firestorm, and then you said Firestorm at the end. I I'm not trying to cheat here, although I feel like I'm cheating a little bit, but I feel that there's some characters that DC has gotten wrong and they need to course correct.
You can't say Wonder Woman,
And
man.
well, no, I'm not. I'm going to say Wonder Girl. I'm going to say Wonder Girl.
Wait, Yara Flora,
Uh,
Wonder Girl?
yeah, Yara Flora,
Okay, yeah,
because
I
I think
100%
Yara
agree.
Flora I think Yara Flora can be course corrected. And all it takes, and what I mean by that is, all it takes is one good story to sort of just course correct her a little bit,
Who do you
change
want?
her attitude
Who do
just a little
you?
bit.
What creative team do you want? Any
You know
idea?
what? I don't. I'm open minded enough to. I'd have to think more about it. To be honest with you, I just whatever my instructions to whatever the creative team is would be to forget what you've read before. Forget that. Just don't ignore that. Just she's from New Jersey and she finds herself suddenly cast and she's got these powers of all given to her upon the gods, and now she's got a connection to the Exquisita tribe in Brazil. You know, tell me that kind of story. And she's, by the way, she's got a sense of humor, and and she's kind of she's kind of a manizer. I mean, she's got a boyfriend named Raul or Luke or whatever the hell his name was there. I think it was Raul, wasn't it? Anyways, my point is that it needs to be reworked a little bit, and I would encourage, because frankly, Wonder Woman has got so many. She's got a pantheon of women, just obviously just women in her Wonder Woman family. I think they. I personally, this is a topic for another day. I'm not going to go on a long rant. I really feel that if they're not going to take more chances on Wonder Woman, because I don't think they've been doing that, at least let them do that with Wonder Girl. Take some chances on a Wonder Woman support. Like, do something different, and I'd really like to see that with Wonder Girl. The other one,
Let me throw a couple names at you real fast.
okay,
Did you read the Spider Woman? Not the one right now by Steve Fox, but the Spider Woman volume before this one.
right.
Carla Pacheco.
No, I did not.
Yeah, I would like to see. Yeah, that was a very humorous. Carla Pacheco comes from the world of comedy.
Yeah.
I would like to see her get a shot. Or what about Kelly Thompson?
You know what? This is, I want to thank you. You got me onto Kelly Thompson's Substack, and I love her Black Cloak, and I love her call. I'm not the biggest fan of the Absolute Wonder Woman for a whole slew of
But
reasons, which
wouldn't it be
I'm going to
completely
do a whole
different?
video on.
Completely different
But
to have her do Absolute or Yara Flor though, right?
uh, probably. I find that she. I don't know, like, it's funny. I didn't find that she played it safe with Captain Marvel, but I find her playing it safe with Absolute Wonder Woman. And
That's fair.
look, anything's better. Anything's better than the way Yara Flor's been portrayed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would take Kelly Thompson. Uh, uh, sure.
I mean, my first choice would be Carla Pacheco. I recommend that Spider Woman series to anybody. It's so fantastic.
or I would, or even, or Kyle Starks. I mean, his type of humor with punchline. I mean, to me, that's an out there suggestion, but put
It's
him on
way
Wonder Girl,
out there.
like an absolute out there. Put him on give him an Amazon. Give him Artemis. Give him Artemis.
Oh my God.
And by the way, whatever happened between Artemis and Jason Todd? They have unrequited love, as far as I'm concerned. Have some fun with that. Give us a series on that.
Yeah, I just think
Rock the
of
boat a little.
that Kyle Starks Peacemaker mini.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Or the Lobo one shot that he did.
Yeah. By the
Lobo
way,
and put in
speaking,
Yara Flora. Oh my God!
yeah,
What a wild.
and by the way, the Lobo cancellation special by Kyle Starks was one of the one shots that made our pick of the week in 2024. There was only 6 one shots that made our picks of the week, and one of them was Lobo cancellation special by Kyle Starks. There's credit. But to finish my train of thought, my next character that I think needs to be reworked is Harley Quinn. She needs to be reworked away from the comedy. But I'm an outlier on that. I know most people disagree.
You got a Harley Quinn on go, and you're not going to get a Harley Quinn mini.
Yeah,
well, no, you'll get a Harley Quinn
that.
mini in addition too.
Yeah, but I mean, this is why every now and then, because you and I can both get like this. I certainly can, where I consume and I absorb my own arrogance. I think that I know what I'm talking about, et cetera, et cetera. But, the fact of the matter is I would never have dreamt that 19 miniseries, like 19 picks of the week would have been a miniseries. It's always the ones I would never. Oh my God, they're doing a Batmite miniseries. How dumb is that? Why do they do? And then all of a sudden, I find myself entertained. Even the Peacemaker miniseries by Kyle Starks. I thought, oh, they're only doing that because he's in the movie. Oh, it's just a money grab. It's just they're hoping to attract. It was the best.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. It was one of the best comics on the stands.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I didn't even see that. I didn't see James Gunn. I still haven't watched James Gunn Suicide, and I never watched any of the James Gunn Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And I never watched any of the Peacemaker show, and I loved the hell out of that series. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I know. And
the Demolition Team, it was fantastic.
It was, and I wouldn't even encourage people to watch the Suicide Squad because you're gonna end that movie hating the Peacemaker. He's an asshole in that movie. I hated him. I didn't want a Peacemaker series because I thought you're gonna get me to like this prick. Forget it. He killed off one of the most beloved characters in Suicide Squad. I love that. I mean, oh my God! And then all of a sudden I'm liking Peacemaker. Oh my God! And his father's even a bigger dick than he is. Oh my God. I mean, it was just incredible. But he pulled it off.
Yeah, I'm calling you out, though. I mean, you said Yara Flor. We said obscure characters. I'll give you a Yara Flor. But then you say Harley Quinn. That she's not obscure at all.
I know.
She's not.
I know. But I tried to cover it. I tried to explain that this is where...
I don't disagree.
I just don't have...
Yeah.
I'm not a big obscure character guy. I'm just not a big obscure character guy. Okay, you know what? I'll give you one. Sergeant Rock. I would love to see a Sergeant Rock series.
Yes.
Give me a Brian Azzarello scripted Sergeant Rock series, drawn by Ryan Sook.
Oh shit!
A war series, 6-issue miniseries.
That would be fantastic. I don't think you could get Brian. I don't know that you could get Brian to come back to DC's doing a lot of creator owned stuff. Ryan Sook. I mean, he's doing the best of Black Canary, best of the best right now. So yeah, maybe.
I mean, imagine how cool it is. I mean, something happens in the present, and it involves something. It involves Sergeant Rock's last mission, who disappeared in July 1945 on his last mission. Him and Easy Company disappeared. And, a journey of time and space, and you got Sergeant Rock. And it's the hunt for Easy Company, but it's pretty damn hard. And I can just think all the cliches, but it's awesome and epic. And away from the, I say this with great respect to I think it was not Kirby, but who was the artist on Sergeant Rock all the time?
Kubert.
Joe Kubert, classic artist. But I always thought that Sergeant Rock needs to have an artist redefine him for the modern age, because there's only one Joe Kubert. But don't try to imitate Joe Kubert. Just we need a new image for Sergeant Rock and a new artistic vision for Sergeant Rock, I think, or at least with a modern day sensibility, into the modern age.
Did you ever? Go ahead and finish your thought.
Well, if you're going to ask me if I've ever read there was a modern day Sergeant Rock series that was drawn by. Are you going to say the artist's name?
Are you talking about the zombie one that we reviewed?
No, not the zombie. No, no. There was a Sergeant Rock miniseries, 6 issues, drawn by an amazing artist. It was almost painted art. It was amazing. I don't know. But in any event,
I don't know that I'm familiar. Was that during during the Infinite Crisis era? Like around that time? I'm trying to
remember.
Was it Sergeant Rock: The Lost Battalion?
Yeah. What is that? Who's the artist on that?
The artist on that. Yeah. It's not telling me. It was by Billy Tucci. Did he do?
Yes, that's the artist. Amazing artist.
It's just says Billy Tucci, so he must have done he must have wrote it and did the art.
Yeah, it was incredible. The covers are amazing. I got the whole series. It's amazing. But in any event, I've always loved Sergeant Rock, not just because my name's Rocky, but I've got a lot of war comics back in the day when I collected. My first comics were out was Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, those early issues. Back in the mid-'70s, I got a lot of Sergeant Rock and Army at War back issues at the local secondhand comic shop. And it just always holds a special place in my heart. And I know war comics aren't really in anymore, but, I mean, we got so many wars going on in the world all over the place. I mean, I can't believe we can't have a modern day war comic. It's just incredible that we don't have more of them. It's actually surprising to me that we don't have more of them.
I've never heard of this series, but you're right, man. These covers look just edited by Mike Martz. Like, I don't know why I haven't never
Yeah,
heard of
it's
this.
incredible. Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna have to track that down. That looks really.
It always blew me away why we haven't gotten a modern day Sergeant Rock story. I mean, we got Sergeant Rock. Scott Snyder put him in metal, but he made him a skeleton, and he was
like
a
torso.
Like, I thought, with all due respect to Scott Snyder, I had issues with that series, but it was a very creatively. It was a very creatively rich and artistically rich series, metal,
Yeah, Wonder Woman had an invisible chainsaw.
yeah. So it was cool and had cool like fanboy moments and what have you. But I don't like how he treated Sergeant
At least
Rock.
Wonder Woman had both
artistically. It was
At least Wonder Woman had her both in her arms.
yeah.
Not that I'm talking about anything, but I think Sergeant Rock. I would agree, and you're right. Like, nobody can do Joe Kubert except Joe Kubert, so stop trying to draw that way and make him look. Although we had the zombie, the Sergeant Rock zombie. That was written by Bruce Campbell. And wasn't it French? Was it Francesco Francavilla that did the art on that?
That's right. He did the
it was
alternate covers.
Eduardo Rizzo did
right.
The art on it. Yeah.
The interior art. Yeah. Francisco Francavilla did some of the alternative covers. Variant covers.
So, we hope you all are having a fantastic Christmas. Thanks for joining us, as Rocky and I just, again, completely unscripted. Again, apologies if you're hoping to hear Tom King. He'll be on sometime in the future, hopefully next month in January. Make it happen. But yeah, let's close out by talking about the Superman trailer. Rocky, what did you watch it the day it came out? What was your initial reaction?
Did you know this is how I think this is? I'm not I wouldn't say I consider myself to overshare with people. I'm not a religious person, but I'm like so many of us like to say when we're trying to sound more intelligent than we are, more connected to things. I say I'm spiritual but not religious. That's what I would describe myself. Lots of us say the same thing. So anyways, what happened is Thursday morning, I get up. Now I get up like about 6 in the morning. I get up at 6 in the morning and I go and I splash water on my face and I'm going to do I got like a 30-minute workout routine and I put my TV on and I have one of those remote things and I say YouTube and the YouTube thing pops up on my screen. And then all of a sudden I look and I see on all my subscriptions, there's all these waiting things like it says live or upcoming, and all of them there was like 20 or 30 people waiting to review the Superman trailer, and I'm thinking like this is like it's 6:15 in the morning where I'm thinking, are you kidding me? And it just so happened it was like 10 minutes away, so it was and it was perfect. So I was literally like I was benching my 30-pound dumbbell weights, like I don't have a lot of weight, so I got to do a lot of repetition. But anyways, I watched that thing live. I watched it live, and the biggest shock to me right out the gate was I initially. When Superman at the beginning hits the snow and he's injured, I initially thought that didn't make a good impression. I thought, well, this is weird. This is weird. What's this going to be? Because I thought, oh, please don't be dark, don't be doom and gloom. I don't want this to be like more Snyder cut. Like, I mean, I don't want that. Please, But it was all uphill from there, and it was. I'm so glad he started the trailer that way, and when he whistled. And I swear to God, I personally, in the early morning, I got emotional. It really, really did. I can so relate to people because when he whistled and then all of a sudden I saw the dust, I'm downstairs in the basement. And my daughter's always up early. She's up on the upstairs. She can hear me. And I said, it's crypto. As soon as I saw the dust in the snow, I thought, it's crypto. And it was crypto. I was and I guessed right. Oh, I mean, of course, it's an easy guess for those of us. But I mean, I just, I got to say, I just love James Gunn right now. I love James Gunn. I don't know. Maybe the movie's not going to be as good as the trailer. Okay, whatever. But boy, oh boy, this trailer, it just hit all the right notes. I mean, just and my favorite part was the crypto, and when Superman says, hands him his cape and says, "Home, take me home," and he's in the Arctic, and he's either going to, the Fortress of Solitude, and that he probably just got beat up, and then in conjunction with the rest of the trailer, it's clear that there's this, that he's dealing with a world that has superheroes on it, and Lex Luthor, and who knows what else. I just thought, the world, I know I'm not alone, that all of us, especially you're my brother in America. You guys have been through some political upheavals over the last 8 years and what have you. We've all been through like a lot of just in our lives, and just politically and socially and everything else. And we up here in Canada, and with our soon to receive 25% tariffs. Anyways, but it was just, it put a smile on my face. And when that kid held up that flag and just cried for Superman, I'm an adult, and I'm going to be turning 56 on January 2nd, and how many, I'd be lying if I said sometimes I just feel like not going to work and holding up a flag saying, "Superman, take me away." You know what I mean? It was just that kid sort of spoke to all of us, or at least it spoke to me. And it was just wonderful. And regardless of how good the movie may or may not do, that trailer itself, I'm going to go opening day. I'm going opening day to that movie. I don't care what I got to do to get a ticket. I'm going opening day. It's that simple. I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. It's what I wanted to see. It put a smile on my face. It made my day. I'm sure I benched even a little bit. I did a few more reps in my 30-pound dumbbell weights, I think. So I had an extra big chest when I went into work that day. But what did you think of it?
Yeah, I had a similar reaction when he crashes into the sun. Like, what is it like? At first you think, well, okay, it's the spaceship crashing into, like, his rocket ship from Krypton, except it's not supposed to be the origin story. It's a flashback. And then you see him, and you see him injured. And I just thought it was a strange choice. Like, the first time we see Superman, it's our introduction to this version of Superman, and he's like curled up in this, like, nearly in a fetal position. He's all beat up or whatever. It seemed like a strange way to introduce him. I don't typically think, again, he's supposed to be invulnerable. And I get that Ultraman is the big bad, right? The Earth 3 version of Superman. And so when it's an immovable object and irresistible force, like, what happened or whatever. But I just thought it was a strange choice. And I didn't come around to it like you, where I'm saying, I'm glad he started it that way. I will say, like, when the crypto moment, like when he whistled, crypto's coming, and then to see he doesn't come flying in, but he comes running and the dust is coming up, like, that was the moment. And then when crypto shows up, and the other part about that, when crypto showed up, like, crypto in my mind, every time he's been in the comic or he's shown up in like a cartoon, typically animated show or TV show, he's always been bigger. He's always been like the size of a Labrador retriever, and a white lab, and he was more terrier size. And we have three dogs. You've met them. My wife's like,
I'm going to ask you. Let me ask you this, because I think you're going there. But let me ask you the question directly. Because I'm not a dog lover, but I actually really like Crypto. I'm glad they changed the type of dog from Labrador to whatever dog that was. But do you agree with me or disagree with me?
No, that's what I was going to say. Like, I prefer, like, we have 3 dogs. They're all smaller dogs. Our oldest dog is a Yorkie, Yorkshire Terrier. Not sure exactly what breed, but this Crypto is, but he does look about that size, like a Yorkie. And I love that. First of all, because I just find smaller dogs to be cuter, and I just like smaller dogs. Also, a lot of people don't probably don't know this, whatever, but dogs can be messy. People know this. Dogs can be messy. They shed everywhere, whatever. Those are dogs with fur, and a Labrador is a dog that has fur. A Yorkie, or whatever breed this is that Crypto is, they have hair like you and I have hair. It's different. They don't shed. They lose their hair just like we, lose our hair from time to time. Some of us more than others. But they're not as messy. That's kind of why I prefer them a little bit. But yeah, I love that idea of it being a smaller, cuter little dog. But the other part is, I like the visual and the idea of it more when you're talking about a dog from Krypton. Like the smaller the dog, but yet can do these incredible feats of strength. That's just funnier to me, right? Like if it's a giant horse-sized dog, like a Great Dane or something, and it's doing some great feat of strength. Well, the thing is huge. You don't take, it doesn't seem as fantastical. But we get a little tiny dog, and it's going to be, whatever, ripping the door off of a bank vault or something. Then you just like, oh my god, or lifting a car up by its bumper or something like that. The visual is just better. So yeah, and the other part of that is, my wife is a huge dog lover, much more so than me. And so like as soon as once I finished watching the trailer, I immediately sent it to her, and I said, this is going to be your favorite Superman movie ever. Pay attention at like 1 minute 3 seconds around that part. You're going to love it. And then, text me back, oh, is that his dog? And whatever. I had forgotten that it was coming out.
Well, let me ask you this. What was your favorite part of the trailer other than Crypto?
Other than Crypto? Yeah, I think just seeing the inside of the Daily Planet was really cool. The actress that's playing Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan, I think she's fantastically talented. Hair a little bit longer than I would prefer, but that's just a personal preference. I think she's fantastic. The guy that's playing Superman, I won't even try to pronounce his last name. David. I'm not even going to try it. I don't know that I'm completely sold on the way he looks when he's Superman. I'm going to have to see more, see his presence, and the costume's a little weird with the shoulder pads or whatever. But his Clark Kent, like when you see him walking on the street and being all clumsy and bumping into
amazing.
People, he does a fantastic job with that. So yeah, I think just, I don't know if I can name like one moment in the trailer that I liked other than the Crypto part, because we've seen so little. But yeah, the overall tone of it, and being the kind of the upgraded John Williams score, where it's the theme music we're used to, but with like this really kick-ass electric guitar, was really cool. But yeah, I'm torn, right? Like I'm so excited for it, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. I couldn't be more excited for it. There's part of me that wants to see more and look at all the trailers, but then there's another part of me like, I've seen enough. I've seen the teaser trailer. I don't know that much about it. I don't want to watch anymore because I want to be surprised and experience it when I go in. But I'm like you, like, I'm not even thinking, okay, I'm going to see this opening day. That's easy to just buy a ticket and go see it opening day. I got to figure out, like, how can I get to one of these premieres? That's what I'm trying to figure out. How can I use my press contacts? Like, maybe I'm not on the red carpet or whatever, but, I need to see it ahead of time. It might not be the world premiere. Maybe, it's on the West Coast or whatever. Like, man, it's coming out like a week and a half before San Diego Comic-Con. So that was the other thing that I was wondering. I was like, so how much, depending on how well it does, if it really hits, does well, it could be the talk of San Diego Comic-Con. Could be opportunities, press opportunities or what have you. So yeah.
The only thing that, and I'm only saying this because I've heaped so much praises on it to family and friends. This is the first time I've spoken to you, my friend, about it. But I have to admit, the only thing that irritated me in all the right ways was I think Guy Gardner looked like an idiot.
Yes, he looked ridiculous.
Was so bad. He looked so bad. I thought he looked like a Saturday Night Live skit actor. He looked like that bad. And I thought James Gunn, I know you got to make him look, he's Guy Gardner, you're going to make him look maybe a little bit, off a little bit, but that was really, really off. Because, the actor who plays Guy Gardner, I forget his name.
Nathan Fillion.
But Nathan Fillion's a good looking guy. Okay.
Not here.
And so, and with all due respect, you went out of your way to try to make, I didn't think it was possible to make Nathan Fillion look like almost ugly, but he pulled it off somehow. Like that hairdo is like ugly. And it was even the wrong color. Why wasn't it orange? Like, why was it sort of a blonde? Like I thought it was just, again, that was such a nitpick. And the scene that he was in, I don't know what's happening in that scene, but I'm curious as hell. Lex Luthor looked amazing. They just the tension, the way they spliced the scenes together, and then that Godzilla-like creature, whatever that might be. it's so cool. Like it was really epic, and I'm really curious to see how they're going to weave all this together. I'm still not sure who the bad guy is. I mean, we know that there's the Ultraman. Maybe he's Ultraman, or is he Ulysses, or is he Ultraman? What's the U stand for? Is this a clone of Superman?
Yeah,
Is it...
the villain that I've heard speculated the most is Brainiac.
Yeah,
because we know Alan Tudyk's in the film, but his role hasn't been announced. So is he the voice of Brainiac? That's the and you know I watched a couple of YouTube videos where people were breaking stuff down, you know, calling out all the Easter eggs, and yeah, they're like, well, this is why we think it's Brainiac, and they were showing various things. I won't get into it here because maybe you don't want it to be spoiled, but it makes a lot of sense what they're saying. Yeah, and as far as Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, I screen capped that and I sent it to my wife as well because she's a huge Nathan Fillion fan. And I've had a chance to meet him. His dream character he wanted to play Simon Williams' Wonder Man. Then he ended up casting a black guy, much younger than Fillion. So at least he gets to do this. And I thought he looked absolutely ridiculous as well. But the thing is, Guy Gardner, he looks ridiculous.
Well, I know he does, but I thought it was pretty that ridiculous.
It was pretty comic accurate. It was pretty comic accurate.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I met Nathan Fillion. I got my picture taken with him at a photo op at the Calgary Expo. My wife and I both did. And he's a very tall guy.
Yeah.
Like he's much taller. Like he's over 6 feet for sure.
Yeah.
And he's a tall guy, very friendly, very nice. He's a very good looking guy. So it was just so funny to me when I saw him. It looked like somebody in the makeup department went out of their way to make it look like fake makeup, a fake wig. He just looked, I thought he looked particularly bad. I didn't think it was a well done rendition of Guy Gardner visually, because I know he can pull off the acting chops because he's a great actor. But like visually, that was, again, such a nitpick. And again, it's Guy Gardner. Guy
Gardner's an ugly guy. Hard to make Nathan Fillion look ugly.
It was like, but I mean, how can he be that tone deaf to not know he looks that ridiculous? Come on.
I thought he looked ridiculous, but I thought it worked for me. And again, my wife's such a fan. I sent it to her. I'm like, do you know who this is? And she never knows any actors' names. She never knows any actors' names. But her response was, "Is that Castle?" She's like, it was the chin. It was the chin because, you know, she loves that show because, again, she's a big fan of.
I love that show too.
Yeah.
Watch it all the time. Back in the day.
Yeah. And you're right. He is fantastic. He was super nice when I met him. So when I met him, I was doing press roundtables for Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events, you know, because he's now with Neil Patrick Harris. And I got to sit next to him and chat with him. Like we did the interview, whatever, at the round table, and then after we got to chat for a few minutes. That was when he told me about Simon. He wanted to be Simon Williams. I was like, I'll try to put in a good word, but I don't know anybody. He thought that was funny. So, anyway, so that's going to do it for this episode. We're going to finish with one last question, Rocky. You know, you mentioned New Year's resolutions. Anything you're hoping in 2025, like any series you want to read or anything that's coming other than the Superman movie that you're really excited about, or like, man, I've never read, you know, whatever, Walt Simonson's Thor run, or you know, anything that you're hoping to dive into, or any kind of goals for 2025 comic wise?
There's only one. Just for what it's worth, you caught me off guard with that question, but you just got lucky because it just so happens that I do have one, and that is I actually have I just got on Kickstarter. I got another hardcover edition of Impossible Jones by Carl Kessel.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to catch up my reading on that. I'm actually behind reading on that. I want to catch up on that. And the other one is that I talked earlier about reading the Valiant universe, the Resurgence. I've got like 35 issues and I've only read about maybe 15 of them. I want to catch up on that. I think that the Valiant universe is highly underrated. I've never reviewed a single Valiant comic book. I don't believe I've ever done that on my YouTube channel. I want to do that. I want to review an entire trade. So one of the best miniseries I read this in 2024 was Roku and I forget her name. Yeah, no, Raku and Ninjak. It was hilarious. It was awesome. I just loved it. It's just Ninjak is an amazing character, highly underrated. I think he's a combination of Punisher and Berserker rolled into one, and there's multiple generations. It's just a fascinating character. It's really, really good. And one thing about the Valiant universe, when back in the day, I remember you could buy hardcovers of. It's so inexpensive to get into the Valiant universe. There's so many, like the back issues digitally, you can really get into it. And I've got so many of those back issues that I haven't read. I'd really like to get into that in 2025. Honestly, the way that between the way you and I give each other more work to do and more comics to read, it might be hard for us to do that. But I would like to, at least for our indie podcast, our indie podcast slash YouTube collaboration. I wouldn't mind maybe if we could at some point, ideally squeeze in some Valiant comic books, because I do think they deserve more love and attention. And by the way, I'm mindful that you want me to read. You mentioned there's three things we should read more of, both you and I: Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Star Trek with IDW, and in my view, Valiant. Those three things, if you and I were to expand our repertoire, I think we should focus on those three, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm caught up on the Star Trek IDW stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned TMNT. I was just doing some research on it just yesterday or the day before. Like, can you pick up Jason Aaron's, first issue and just dive in without having to read any? Because I've never really read any Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I read.
Can you?
I think I read the first two issues of the last Ronin miniseries, but I never finished it. But yes, yes, you can. You can pick up Jason Aaron's first issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think issue 4 is out. I think they're only up to issue 4. So yeah, it would be a good time to maybe jump in and do that. As far as Valiant, it's so weird. Like, I have such a strange relationship with it. I loved it back in the day, and then when it came back in 2012, I dove in fully, and I fell in love with it, and I became friends with all of the creators and all of the executive people over at Valiant, and they're still my friends to this day. And those guys have pivoted over to Bad Idea. For those not aware, I won Bad Idea Fan of the Year in 2023. Bad Idea Fan of the Year competition is coming back in 2025. I am not going to win it this year. I may put in an effort, but I won't kill myself the way I did last time. Because I'll always be the first. I'll always be first, and nobody can take that away from me. And it's just it's so stressful. I just don't want to put myself through it. But the way that those guys, the company was kind of taken away from them, which doesn't have anything to do with the creative team and the staff that's there now. It's the people that own it. They're the one that the onus is on them for the way things were done. So it doesn't have anything to do with it. But I've never gone back. Like, since those guys left, I didn't keep up with it, and I just kind of fell away from it. Now I know very few people. Well, I shouldn't say that. I know some people over there because I know them from other places. Like, I think Fred Van Lente does stuff with Valiant still. Obviously Liam Sharp did stuff over there with the Exo Manowar and what have you. But I don't have the same relationship with Valiant that I did. I'm sure I could. In fact, I met one of the guys this last year at San Diego Comic-Con. That's one of the big wigs there. And he was fantastic or whatever. And I'm sure I 100% could start a relationship. But I don't know, it still feels weird. And if I asked the guys a Bad Idea, they wouldn't care. They'd be like, oh yeah, do it, cover it, whatever. Because the characters are still interesting. And you mentioned Ninjak. One of my favorite series ever was Ninja K, and it...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Christos Gage, and it postulated that his name wasn't Ninjak, it was Ninja K, because there was a Ninja A, and a B, and a C, and a D, all the way to K.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
Clay Mann did a lot of the art on it, and oh man, that, Matt Kint did a bunch of Ninjak stories like that. That Valiant stuff is just it's just so good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That series is just fantastic. So I'm not opposed to it, but yeah, like you said, it's a matter of...
I love it.
Yeah, it's a matter of time, right? Like, I'm glad you mentioned the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stuff. I want to do that.
And just a shout out to Ninjak is that I got the pre-order edition of every one of the Ninjak issues. You could get the pre-order edition versus the regular the regular edition. And I was so deep into Valiant comics, man. I love it.
Yeah. So other than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then just being caught up on the usual stuff, try to stay a little more current on stuff other than DC stuff, with the other independent stuff, and do that spreadsheet. This year, I really want to do that. Got to do that spreadsheet. Leave myself notes. Read a book, jot down just a sentence or whatever, fragment. Doesn't matter. The other thing that I would like to do is I've been threatening for a long time to do a big deep dive into Ghost Rider, like starting way back with Marvel Spotlight #5. And so yeah, I would like to do that as well. Yeah, and it doesn't take as much time as you would think. Like before I interviewed Scott Snyder, I hadn't read a lot of that stuff that we mentioned in a long time. I read so many series from Scott Snyder before I talked to him. I reread every single one of his series he did at Comixology that then came over to Dark Horse. So except for We Have Demons. So I reread Clear, Canary, Duck and Cover, Dudley Dotson and the Forever Machine, Book of Evil, which not a lot of people talk about, but it's fantastic. I highly recommend that. With Jock, just a different way to tell a story. Barnstormers is by a thread that he's doing that's coming back next year that he co-writes with his son, Jack. And then even his 2 Dark Spaces series over at that he did at IDW, and Mark Doyle was there. The Dark Spaces Wildfire, which was a heist story, and Dark Spaces Dungeon. If you're a Scott Snyder fan, if you're out there listening, you're a Scott Snyder fan, if you've never read Dark Spaces Dungeon, you need to read that. Like, I read that book, I read that series, I think it was 5 issues, and I get to the last page, and I said out loud, Jesus fucking Christ, Scott, what are you doing, man? Like, and I told him when I interviewed him, I'm like, dude, that is the scariest thing. That is the most brutal thing you've ever written. Like, yeah, I love that series. I love it. So, yeah, he's super busy, doing all that stuff. He's got his Witches animated series. It's going to get at least 2 seasons at Amazon. Talked about that in the conversation as well. So, yeah, just really fantastic. If you haven't read that, definitely check it out. But yeah, I got a lot of plans for 2025, but yeah, I had a lot of plans for 2024. It all comes down to just time, just having enough time to do everything I want to do. So hopefully we'll get some Ghost Rider content out for you this year, everybody. Definitely going to plan on doing tons more Ghost Machine deep dives and issue by issue, some collaborations with some other Ghost Machine content creators. And then yeah, just continue to do the DC Spotlight and the independent Spotlight, and yeah, read more comics, take more notes, buy less physical comics. Those are my goals.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out. First of all, I want to express to you my gratitude for you, my collaboration with you, Jace. My collaboration with you has honestly fostered and enhanced my love for comic books over the last few years. I was privileged, and you and your wife Lois and your wonderful daughter were nice enough to host me when I came down there in April for the Phoenix Fan Fusion. That was fantastic. I love our collaborations every week. It really is, when I bitch, whine, and complain about having to read 18 comics at the end of the week, it's not really complaining. It's actually a break. Yeah. It really is. It's nice. I enjoy it. It's nice to get away. The truth is that I actually read most of them at work in between my lunch breaks and the breaks that I give myself. I am self-employed. I'm a family law lawyer by occupation, and so I find time at work. And thank God we have those preview copies that you're nice enough to extend to me, and DC allows us to review their comics every week and read them in advance ahead of time. That's wonderful. And I just want to say thank you, and I want to wish your family a very Merry Christmas, and to all our listeners who put up with us and put up with our rants and our raves. Thank you so much for listening to us at the DC Comic Review, whether you watch it on my YouTube channel of Comic Boom or at the Comic Source podcast, where you can access through Apple and through wherever podcasts are. You can always find Jace at Comic Source Podcast. And it's just been a wonderful year. This has been a great year for me, both personally, professionally, and also in terms of my enjoyment. This was really I'm very, very grateful for you. And it's just been a really great year for me. And you're part of that. And I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I feel the same way, man. You're one of my closest friends. Are just so weird because we just met randomly. All thanks to Dan Didio getting fired and you doing a live thing with Trevor Dark Knight Nation that I happened to catch. Reached out and it just grew from there, and it's so fantastic. My one wish for 2025, if I could throw a wish out there from out there in the universe to make it happen, and it was so great to have you here and spend time with you at Fan Fusion. But it's such a small show in terms of like what creators are there or whatever. And I would love it one of these days, and really hope it can happen in 2025, to have you at San Diego Comic Con or at New York Comic Con with me there.
Yeah.
Because what you like me introducing you to, the couple creators that were at, whether it be Charles Soule or Alex Segura or whomever, those few creators that were there at Fan Fusion, it's nothing like if we were at really San Diego would be the one, right? Because then it's such a huge party, and we'd go.
That's on my bucket list.
Yeah,
it's definitely on my bucket list for sure.
I would just love. I mean, I know I talked about this on the show. Like, it took me 2 hours just to make one circuit around the bar at San Diego Comic Con because all the creators are stopping wanting to talk, and to be able to have you share that with me and be able to introduce you to all these creators would just be, it would just be fantastic. I got a little bit of that at New York Comic Con. When I was there this last year with Trevor and Ryan Best, his artist on Rise, because Ryan is a fantastic artist, but he's a little introverted. He's a little, he doesn't want to go up and talk to people. He's like, oh, that's so and so. I'm such a huge fan of theirs. I'm like, well, I know them. Let me introduce you, whatever. So that I just like being able to do that, to bring people together and what have you. In fact, there's times when I'm introducing comic creators, like the first time, like Tom King wanted to meet Zach Kaplan and vice versa. They'd never met each other, and they're both friends of mine. So I'm like, oh, let me introduce you. So to be able to do that for you would be really cool. So hopefully,
well, it's not a question of if, my friend. It's a question of when. So that's the good news.
Yeah. So I'll echo Rocky's sentiments. If you're listening to this over 2 hours, this is way longer than I thought. We had no plan, but it was fantastic chat. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for taking a little time to join us this holiday season. Like Rocky said, we're so grateful that you guys engage with us and listen to us talk about these funny books, these fantastical characters every week, whether you're joining the DC Spotlight on Rocky's YouTube channel, listening to the audio-only version of it, or checking us out over at the Comic Source podcast or the Comic Source YouTube channel on our Indie Spotlight. Whatever it is that you enjoy, we're glad that you're here. Thank you so much for the support. We wouldn't do it if you guys weren't out there listening. And don't forget that there's going to be a giveaway for a full year of Global Comics, the premier the premier digital comic destination, if you leave a comment on this episode. So whatever you want to give us your reaction to the Superman trailer, you want to talk about what you read this year that you loved, you just want to tell us we suck, it doesn't matter. Leave a comment. You'll be entered in to win. And you can go back and check out all the episodes for the 12 Days of the Comic Source. Leave a comment on each one. All of them leading up to Christmas, the 11 episodes leading up to Christmas. You can win a month. You can win 30 days of Global Comics subscription. But the one for this episode will be a full year. So I'll be announcing those on New Year's Day in an episode that drops. And there's a few people that still, I think maybe at least one person that hasn't gotten back to me that did win a code already that hasn't gotten back to me. So just look for, when you leave your comment, if you win, I'll reply to your comment and say, hey, you won, send me an email, what have you, and we'll go from there. So that's going to do it. Again, everybody, happy holidays. Hope you had a Merry Christmas, and here's to a prosperous new year for one and all.
Indeed.
All right, well, that's going to do it, everybody. Thanks for joining us as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.
Recording stopped.